However, because we have so much glucose in our diet, so many carbohydrates, that mechanism, that door with the lock and the key stops working. So insulin resistance is when the cells in your muscles, fat and liver are not responding. There's been too much knocking on the door. Let me in, let me in. What, again? I keep doing it.
I always see it like just think of the most like fabulous nightclub you can possibly imagine, and everybody wants to go in, but it's already rammed. So it's really rammed, and the bouncers are supposed to be clicking one out, one in, but they're just stood there and they're trying to deal with a load of stuff that's going on, so they can't see whether or not people are coming in or out, and so more people are cramming in. People can't get out. That's kind of what's happening. The insulin can't get out. It can't get in. And what is in there isn't doing its job anyway.
So the door on the cell is closed shut. The body cannot use the insulin. So blood sugar levels go up. And there is an insulin mob at the door trying to get in, trying to make action happen. And the body is swimming in glucose, it's swimming in insulin, which contributes to inflammation. It damages the blood vessels. And the body is more concerned about what's happening in the blood to keep homeostasis than what is actually happening in our food and in our gut. Now, we cannot have insulin resistance. So this mechanism of insulin no longer, the cell is resistant and closed to insulin. We cannot have that mechanism happening without hyperinsulinism, without high levels of insulin. That's the mob. It's that door is shut because they don't want to let that mob in because they've got plenty. And so you can't have the two without each other. And the fats,
and then the bit,
go on.
Yeah, go on. So I was going to say that hyperinsulinism is behind insulin resistance. So we could all be trucking along, you know, having lovely insulin metabolism, lovely sugar metabolism. Then over time, we're, you know, stressed, we're busy, we're eating too much sugary foods, too many carbohydrates. Other things change in our body, which means that we're not dealing with the insulin so well. We're going to talk about those. And so that is, I've now got hyperinsulinism. Insulin resistance is that next stage on when the body goes, well, now I can't make the insulin work for me. And the bit that's interesting is we cannot grow fat cells without insulin being present because because of the fat storage signaling. So if we are putting on weight, there is insulin present.
Yeah. It's also, you can see in this little flow diagram that when the cells are shut the door on insulin, then the body, to be able to cope, starts storing the glucose, the sugar, in fat cells. And a classic symptom of that is feeling tired, like the carb coma, and hungry. And then, of course, we go out and eat more food, and then the cycle just continues. So when we look at what is insulin resistance from more of the traditional NHS model, you'll see the symptoms are an increased waistline, skin tags, darkened skin in patches, and trouble healing. So again, this is what, when I started learning about blood sugars and insulin resistance, I was like, well, that's quite, yes, the waistline thing is a huge issue. But I actually don't, in my clinic, get many skin tags or people complaining about darkened skin patches. It's just something that people don't complain about, even if they do have it. However, undiagnosed insulin resistance, the whole heap of stuff we see in the clinic. It's the weight gain, the obesity, the type 2 diabetes, the migraines, the dementia, the Alzheimer's, the erectile dysfunction, the PCOS, certain cancers, fatty liver, gout, arthritis, osteoarthritis, inflammation, heart disease, high blood pressure, stroke, sarcopenia. I mean, this is what we see. This is what, when people come into our clinics, that they are saying that they've got issues with weight, they've got issues with their sex drive. We're seeing 1 in 2 people with cancer. Polycystic ovaries syndrome is everywhere.
It's right.
High blood pressure, highly medicated, heart disease. And it is actually undiagnosed insulin resistant.
it was literal music to our ears when we actually saw doctors putting this up on slides and saying, this is insulin resistance. This is what's happening in the body before insulin resistance then becomes diagnosed as prediabetes or as whatever it is. The fact that doctors were standing up and saying certain cancers, and what they mean by certain cancers are not the genetic ones, not the ones where they're incredibly cause connected. So you were a smoker and you've got lung disease, for example. Although I would still argue that if the environment is wrong, because you can have people who smoke for the whole of their lives, but if the environment is wrong, then you're going to be getting that potential. But they were talking about sort of, you know, certain cancers where it's like, oh, it's more, where did that come from? Who knows? It here, and we're going to be telling you a little bit more about that later. And so much of this is medicated. So much of this is attributed to something else: high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction. Well, it must be a problem with your circulation. Stroke must be a problem with your circulation. Osteoarthritis and arthritis, well, that's a problem. You know, it's going to send you to a rheumatologist, and we can put you on a load of anti-inflammatory things. Gout, the way that gout's dealt with is horrendous. Migraines, let's medicate you, let's put you on this, that, and the other. Dementia and Alzheimer's. We, in the naturopathic world, have been calling dementia diabetes 3 for probably about a decade. I'd say about a decade. We've been using this diabetes 3 sort of label for dementia. So when you actually start to look at this as a picture, it's not just weight gain and obesity, it's not just diabetes. I would also argue, and it actually does come in later, that type 1 diabetes as well, if they weren't born with it, which only, I believe, about 11% of people are. It comes off the back of autoimmune response later in life. So we have been saying for a very long time that as soon as we get to this place of any kind of immune destabilization and inflammation, that is where all of the chronic conditions come off. And the premises of our work is what is going on in those pillars that is, you know, causing this inflammation, and how do we mitigate it?